Yes, thank you for having us. So I'm Daria Doman. I work at the Institute for Community Inclusion, and we are affiliated with the University of Massachusetts, Boston. My role there is as a KT specialist slash researcher. I perform both roles depending on the project I'm on. And today we're going to be talking about how the ICI has worked with youth and young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities around product development through the Center on Youth Voice, Youth Choice. Going forward, I'm just going to say civic because Center on Youth Voice, Youth Choice. I'm sure I'll trip up over it as I keep repeating it. So civic is, or was, it just ended, but it was a 5-year project that was housed within the ICI, although we had a variety of partners. And it was a national resource center on alternatives to guardianship for youth. And it mostly focused on promoting alternatives to guardianship around the country. And for those who are unfamiliar with the term, alternatives to guardianship are tools other than guardianship that can help people make decisions and get support around about their lives. So examples of such tools are powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, representative payees, and supported decision-making agreements. The Civic project worked with 11 state teams around the country. We trained over 40 youth. We had an advisory board that was mostly composed of youth and young adults with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. And we also collaborated with a national coalition of disability organizations around the country. And all of this to promote and advocate for alternatives to guardianship. So the central part of the Civic project was its Youth Ambassador program. Our state teams that I mentioned, we worked with 11 of them. They recruited youth and young adults between the ages of 14 and 26 who identified as having an intellectual or developmental disability. These youth were then trained to become leaders in their states to promote alternatives to guardianship. And they went through a 13-week training program where they learned about advocacy and leadership, but also about what their rights are and how to make decisions for themselves. And after this 13-week training program, our youth became instrumental in getting the word out on alternatives to guardianship to other families and other youth, to legislators, educators, parents, anybody who would listen. And many of our youth have had national profiles. They've presented at national conferences and webinars, and they've spread the word out through publishing books, being on podcasts, developing website applications. So, and today you're going to actually hear from one of our youth from New Jersey who developed one of these really cool, innovative products that had a wide distribution. So since this is obviously a KT conference, I wanted to get into talking about two products where we worked collaboratively with our advisory council. As I mentioned, where 75% of them were youth and young adults who identified as having IDD, as well as our youth ambassadors. So I'm going to quickly share my website here. Since the resources that we created through Civic, many of them had a lot of legal language in them. We created alternatives to guardianship tools. I don't have the time to go through that at this point, but we created something called an alternatives to guardianship in your state map. And there are different legal tools in there on education, healthcare, that users can go in and learn more about those. And a lot of the tools and resources, again, have legal language that needed to be translated into plain language. So we created a plain language legal glossary, again, in collaboration with our advisory board and our youth ambassadors. So we made a video that's about a minute long on why we created the glossary. And as I'm scrolling down here on this web page, there are about 30 legal terms that are explaining what they mean. So for example, durable power of attorney. This could be a pretty complicated concept to wrap your head around. We made sure to make it, write it up so that it was as accessible as we could possibly make it. And we also filmed videos with our youth ambassadors to explain this terminology. So not every term has a video. We took some of the more complex ones to do that. And so I just wanted to show you this page. We also have this information in a PDF that is an accessible digital PDF that could be printed. And as you can see, it has pretty large type. And again, this is something someone can print to have in their office or bring to a conference. And we also have a page with, I guess, a channel, a video channel with all the plain language legal terminology that was, again, filmed in collaboration with our youth ambassadors. And even writing up the terminology, we worked with our youth ambassadors and our advisory board. So it was all screened by them to make sure that it was the best that it could be for this audience. So I'm just going to briefly play this 1-minute video just so you can get a sense of what this looks like.
Yay.
Durable power of attorney is a document where you can pick a person, also called an agent, that can make decisions for you. You can choose whether that person can make decisions for you right away or only after you are unable to make decisions. What makes a power of attorney durable is that the person will have the ability to make the decisions for you, even after you are unable to make them for yourself without support. Once you are unable to make decisions for yourself, you may not be able to change your agent or cancel your durable power of attorney.
All right. Oops. That was our youth ambassador, Dashiell from California. And I think he stars in several of the videos on there, probably half of them. So feel free to check that page out. I hope somebody could put it in the chat. But so as you could see, we created multiple formats of this information because we knew that a lot of this legal information that was being shared needed a little bit more of an extra explanation, even for parents and educators, in order to really understand some of these legal tools like healthcare proxies and powers of attorney that a young adult would come across when they were considering some of these tools. And so actually our feature product that I'd like to share today with my co-presenter is I'm so sorry, this is, all right. Which is a comic called Thinking for Me. As I mentioned, our youth ambassadors went through a 13-week training program. At the end of that training program, they were expected to create some sort of a product, which we called a showcase, to advocate for alternatives to guardianship in any form. So some people wrote books. I know somebody created an app and Giancarlo created a comic book. When we were contacted about this comic book and to disseminate it, we felt that it needed to maybe have another format, because it was such a great product, but we thought maybe we could do something with this comic book in another format that would also be digestible, and we could send it out to a broader audience. So we reached out to ICI's instructional media team, and they looked at it and they said, we can do a comic audio story. And that's what they proposed. So Giancarlo agreed to do that. And within a couple weeks, we had kind of a draft of a comic audio story. And it went from there. So initially, the comic audio story was, I believe we used AI voices for it. And when we showed it to Giancarlo, he was like, no, I want to use my voice. I want to enlist my friends to do it. It'll be more authentic. And we completely agreed. So that's what we did. So Giancarlo reached out to his friends, and they all got together and recorded the script from this comic to create a video, basically. And before I show the video and introduce Giancarlo, I just wanted to briefly show you, and maybe someone could put it in the chat as well, so this is just a sample page of the comic book. And we have a PDF of it too, so it'll go in the chat if anybody wants to check it out. And we also have an email address affiliated with this comic book, because we also have a Spanish version and printed versions. So if anybody has any questions about that and also acquiring a copy, we will put an email in the chat in order to reach out to Giancarlo to get that. So after the video, we are going to pass it on to my co-presenter, Giancarlo Vicari, who will talk a little bit about himself and what inspired him to make this comic.
Thinking for Me, written by Giancarlo Vicari, illustrated by Isa Vicari. This is Jake.
Hey guys.
Hey man, how are you doing?
Jake's a teen who's about to enter the next big stage of his life.
I hear you're turning the big 1-8 soon.
So, got any big plans for your party?
Well, I haven't really had time to plan a party yet because of my parents.
What have you been talking about?
Well, these past few days, my parents have been worrying that I won't be able to make the best decisions for myself in adulthood because of my disability. So, they're thinking about putting me under this thing called guardianship.
Oh, I've heard of that kind of situation before.
Well, what's it about?
Guardianship's basically like this thing, like the parents of certain people, I forget.
We should go to the library to figure out what it means.
Good idea. Let's go.
Later.
Hey guys, check this out.
What's up?
It says here that guardianship is a legal term that states when a person with an intellectual or developmental disability turns 18 years old, then the parent of said person is eligible to file for guardianship.
Guardianship. Guardianship is when a guardian, example, the parent itself or a person chosen by the parent, has full legal control over the person, which means that the guardian and the court can place limits on what the person can do. Guardianship has, for many years, been labeled as the default choice for parents who don't think that their kids can make complicated decisions.
Wait, is that supposed to be a good or a bad thing?
Depends on who you ask. For some people, guardianship is the best way that parents can have some influence over their children if they don't feel like they're capable of living completely independently.
Well, that kind of sounds a bit too restrictive for a guy like Jake.
What do you mean?
I just wish there was a way that if Jake were to be under guardianship, he could have more freedom to do what he thinks is best for himself.
Well, actually, there might be. It says something here about a thing called alternatives to guardianship.
What does that mean?
Supported decision making. Supported decision making is a model for helping people with disabilities to make decisions about their own lives. Under supported decision making, we can form support teams made up of people we trust. Our supporters can be family, friends, community members, or anyone else we trust. These supporters might be able to access private information, such as medical information, that they would otherwise not be able to see. Supporters are only allowed to see our personal information if we decide that they can.
That sounds like a pretty good option.
Wait a minute, guys. It says here that SDM isn't the only alternative to guardianship.
Well, what else is there?
Power of attorney. Power of attorney is a legal document. Giving somebody power of attorney means that they can make legal decisions and take care of your money or other issues on your behalf. The person you give these rights to is your agent. You can also take away the power of attorney at any time. There are two kinds of powers of attorney, regular and durable. A regular POA will stop working if you ever become unable to make decisions, while a durable POA, on the other hand, will stick around even if you're unable to do things by yourself.
That also sounds good.
Kinda sounds like they're a spin-off to the last one to me.
Is there anything else?
Actually, there is.
Representative payee. A representative payee is someone who manages your benefit money on your behalf. You can get a representative payee if you get financial disability benefits from the government and you need support to manage your money. There are many regulations to make sure that they are not mismanaging your money. Sometimes the government will decide you need a rep payee even if you do not want one. If this happens, you may be able to get the government to stop using a rep payee for you.
All of these options sound great. I'll be sure to mention these to my parents and the people in my IEP meetings. Thanks, guys.
No probs, man.
Good afternoon. My name is Giancarlo Vicari. I am a 16-year-old white male with brown hair wearing a black polo tee and glasses, and I am in 11th grade. I live in Union Township, Union County, New Jersey. I have been working with Civic for 3 years now. When I started with Civic, I was doing weekly sessions where I learned about alternatives to guardianship, how neurodivergent people got where they are now, and the art of advocacy and change. I'm part of a state team with NJCDD, the Bog Center, SPAN, and Disability Rights New Jersey. I go to school at Newmark Education and the Union County Career and Technical Institute. I have 2 siblings and I love the arts. When I began participating in IEP meetings, I would greet the team and they would ask me some questions and that would be it. Now I stay the whole meeting and I discuss my plan for the year and I have a say in what's working or not. The United Nations has a comic about their 17 goals for the year 2030, and I liked how they presented all those issues so concisely. I'm also just a huge fan of cartooning in general, so I thought this would be a fun way to show alternatives to guardianship for youth who know nothing about this. Many neurodivergent youth are visual learners, so having a resource like this is a plus for them, and we made the motion comic version specifically to benefit the visually impaired. I got my friends to do the voices because they're the target audience. Thinking for Me has been shared through social media, newsletters, webinars, and conferences. I've shown Thinking for Me at events hosted by 4-H, CPAG, FSO, NJCDD, the Union County Prosecutor's Office, and Autism New Jersey. I've even presented at the NJCDD's quarterly meeting. I've collaborated with transition coordinators at the Morris Union Jointure Commission. And I've presented to the entire sophomore grade at Newmark High School, and feedback has been generally positive, with many kids my age telling me that they love the illustrations and info. Last year, I was interviewed by People and Families magazine, which is a publication of NJCDD. They published the interview in the latter half of the year, and to this day, I consider that one of the crowning achievements of my life. Questions, anyone? Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. And I would like to thank all the people at Civic who brought me into this new and exciting world I had no idea about, and for giving me the opportunity to do so much with my talents.
Thank you, Giancarlo. And a lot of people are thanking you in the chat. And we did share a way to contact you through thinkingforme08@gmail.com. Before we launch into more Q&A, Daria, would you mind doing a little visual self-description? And great job. Thanks for doing that.
Sure. Yes. So I'm a white woman with short brown hair and black glasses, wearing a gray V-neck sweater.
Perfect. Thank you. As an individual lived experience, what were some gaps you saw in the knowledge translation process? By the way, great comic. I learned a lot.
I can definitely see that this definitely doesn't cover everything that has to do with alternatives to guardianship. This is definitely more so a taste of this world, you know, like a almost like a sample platter of alternatives to guardianship and disability rights advocacy and all that. I'm definitely working on more. I'm definitely working on like new stuff. There's definitely more stuff like this on the horizon. You can bet on that.
Well, that's good to hear. I think the audience would share my enthusiasm. Everyone's very excited about this. And this, I guess, is a question for either one of you. Could you explain a bit the difference between guardianship and conservatorship?
I think some states call it conservatorship and some states call it guardianship, but I also think conservatorship includes taking over the decision making for financial stuff and property. I think there might be a slight distinction, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to give the wrong legal information here. But there's a slight distinction. But I know that in California, I believe they say conservatorship. But it's roughly the same thing, I think.
Okay.
I was actually I saw that question. I was trying to find, financial matters. Yeah.
Lorraine Cumberledge. Conservatorship typically involves managing financial matters. Guardianship is for making personal care decisions, is what this person is contributing.
I think it's.
I've just received new information. It says that a legal guardian can make a wide range of personal and medical decisions for the person in their care, while a conservatorship generally grants much more limited decision-making powers. A conservator usually only has the authority to pay bills, make investments, and handle other financial matters.
Thank you.
And just one, I wanted to just backtrack quickly to, so Giancarlo was saying how the question was about the gaps in knowledge in this area. I just posted a link to a video channel where all the youth ambassadors created a product trying to address that gap in their states too. So Giancarlo created a video explaining what this is, and how to talk to your family members about it. But the other youth created other products to try to address that gap as well. And so that is on that video page
Got it.
that I just put up there. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to confirm, because I was so impressed. Giancarlo, you did all the artwork, right? It wasn't a piece of software that you were
No, I didn't do the artwork. That was my sibling that did the artwork. I
Oh.
just wrote it and did the layout drawings.
Okay. But still, it's very impressive that it's,
Thank you.
genuine, art graphics. Because a lot of people would just rely on using the animation softwares that are pieces software programs that are out there for animation. So it gives it even more authenticity that it's coming, from someone's own creativity.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh no, then I was saying when we reached out to our marketing team, they thought it was such a wonderful product, but they're like, well, can we do something to kind of shorten it or just a different format? And so they got really excited about it too, because they knew that this was sort of like an up and coming way to communicate with youth and the youth that typically ICI works with. So I think this isn't going to be the last comic audio book that at least comes out of ICI, because it was very popular and has gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. And it's so easy to share. It's 5 minutes. And it could be for youth, it could be for educators who are trying to educate their parents and their students about this topic as well. It's just a very accessible way to absorb that kind of information.
Absolutely, really. I mean, for anybody, these are difficult concepts to grasp.
Yep,
Having
exactly.
gone to my lawyer on Friday, I had a lot of these same questions
Yeah.
myself about various issues.
Right.
So Cindy Kai, who we discussed earlier, she's like, what a great comic and video. What support have you provided to youths to help them develop the products, e.g. contents to be translated, guidelines, etc.? Thanks. So Cindy, do you mean financial support or training? Or both?
Both.
Well, I think as far as Giancarlo's comic book goes, this was part of his, and you could speak to it much better than I can, but the youth ambassadors through Civic, they went through a training program. And so I think they touched on, I don't think they were, taught how to create a comic book. That's just Giancarlo's talent and his interest, and he's an artist. But they were sort of coached and I think taught on how to create something that will promote alternatives to guardianship. And all the different youth ambassadors obviously took different approaches. Some wrote books. One individual created an application. And there's numerous ones out there that are not at the tip of my tongue right now. But so they did go through that training. As far as like the legal glossary and the videos, that was basically ICI staff and our partners. We would just get together with the youth on Zoom. We'd write a script. We'd work with our advisory board to again get their feedback on accessibility. So it was just sort of a lot of back and forth between the youth, the marketing team, myself, to kind of get to to get to that final product. I don't know, does that kind of answer the question? This is a very new area for us too, by the way. I mean, for ICI, it was sort of the first time we did work around alternatives to guardianship. So
Mhm.
We learned a lot from working with the youth too,
Of course. Yeah. And Cindy says, thank you so
what
much.
they wanted. So,
So,
yeah, the financial support. So I believe the youth ambassadors were paid. They got stipends to be part of the 13-week program. And am I correct, Giancarlo? I think so. And Giancarlo, I think we did pay for the comic as well. I think he did make a modest fee for the comic.
Yeah, I really did have a lot of fun making the thing. It took about a year from concept to conference. But I'm very proud of the work that me and my siblings and my friends did with that whole thing. It was one of the most, I'd say, transformative experiences of my life, being with Civic from start to finish. I've learned so much. I've been exposed to a whole new world of possibilities, and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
And I would say too that the youth were, even if it wasn't part of their showcase, many of them were very enthusiastic in helping the project in general to make things more accessible. We could always reach out to any youth and say, hey, we need somebody to come to we're doing a speaker series to educators. Would you be willing to come and talk about your experience? Or, hey, we're drafting this fact sheet on guardianship. Would you be able to read through it? Could you offer some ideas for icons that would resonate with youth?
So thank you so much, Daria and Giancarlo.